Welcome back. In the last video, you learned how FactFinder replaces the broken bridge call process with a systematic approach to solving problems. Now it's time to start solving an actual application problem using FactFinder. In this video, we're going to talk about how to get a view in FactFinder of the problem that users are complaining about before applying the methodology to actually solve that problem. The first step is understanding how this application works, especially if you don't know very much about it. Second, we'll talk about starting with the right context, whether you should be looking at an application or transaction view. And third, I'm going to show you how to navigate to the right time window in FactFinder for a historical view of how that problem emerged. So the first thing that you should do whenever you have an application problem is make sure you understand how the application works and how it behaves. Using the Explorer views, like the Application or Transaction Explorer, learn about the various components in the map and their connections. Try zooming in to see more information about the processes. Or drill down into a machine and look at the Processes tab to explore the various components that are active on that machine. Look at transactions. Try to get a sense of what this machine does and what the various components are doing. As you're exploring the machines and you learn more about them, try using a label. That's the yellow bar above each machine to label what that machine is and what it does. To add a label to a machine, right-click and choose Add Machine Label. I've already got one here, so you see mine says Edit Machine Label, but it's the same idea. Then type in what you'd like it to say here and click OK. The other thing to look for are anomalies in the environment, things like pending reads, stalls, and failed connections. The pending read indicator indicates that transaction requests are beginning to back up, waiting on this server. Stalls indicate that a transaction request to one of these machines has taken longer than 60 seconds to complete. And failed connections indicate that a machine tried to connect to a remote machine and failed. All of these are indicators of potential performance problems. Finally, use the Traces pane to look for errors. These are other indications of potential problem areas to investigate. The goal with examining this environment and looking for anomalies is not to actually solve the problem yet. We're just trying to understand how this application behaves. As you approach solving the problem, it's important to make sure that you start with the right context. Learn everything that you can about the problem. Who may be affected by it, how many are affected by it, what they're actually complaining about, in as specific detail as possible, and especially when the problem was supposed to have happened. When users are complaining about a problem with an application, try to understand whether the entire application is having a problem or just some of the transactions. To do that, go to the Top Transactions tab and search for the application name. This will filter the view for just the transactions that are part of that application. If you see that all of them have high average response time, that indicates that there's a systemic problem affecting all transactions. If just one of the transactions are having a problem, that's an indicator that your view should be scoped down to just the transaction. In this case, you can see that just the login transaction is having a problem. That means I want to start there. In the particular problem I'm solving, users are complaining about a login problem, and I can confirm that by looking at this Top Transactions view. None of the other transactions are impacted. So I'm going to open a Transaction Explorer, which I have here. The next step is focusing in on the time window when this problem was supposed to have happened. Using the time controls, which you can get to by clicking the History button, you can navigate to any time period that FactFinder has data for. The goal is to identify a time window that shows the emergence of this problem that users complained about. That's critical for seeing what happened in the infrastructure that caused the degradation. In my case, the trouble ticket said that the problem happened around 1:48. I'm going to choose a 30-minute window around that time to try to find the period when the problem emerged. This loads data about the transaction for the time window I just specified. You can see in the top right that we're in historical rather than live mode. Now, let's look at the average response time graph to confirm whether we see the emergence of the problem. Yep, there's our problem happening, right around 1:48. If you're doing this process, and you just see constant poor performance across this time window, that means you need to go further back in time to try to find the problem. Once we confirm that we see the problem emerge, we should focus on a narrower time range. I'm going to set my time range to around 1:48 when this problem seems to have emerged, and I'm going to set it down to 10 minutes. I'll confirm that by looking at average response time. Yep, there's the problem again. That's the end of this video, teaching you how to focus in on the problem, application, or transaction, and on the right time frame when the problem emerged. In the next video, you'll apply the methodology that you learned earlier to actually find the root cause of this problem.